My parents were on a plane to Korea, and it got hit by lightning. And then this was a Korean airline, and so the flight attendant, she got on the intercom, and all she said was, "Ladies and gentlemen, everything will be okay." And my parents were like, "Yeah, right. Are you
said
Thor, God of Thunder? How do you know that everything is going to be all right?"
Welcome to The Lisa Show, where we take a good look at life. Hey, it's Lisa. Have you heard the black cat golden retriever dynamic? It's a popular TikTok term to describe people that are opposites. Black cats are introverted, independent, and enigmatic. Golden retrievers, on the other hand, are bubbly extroverts, loyal, and energetic. Often black cats and golden retrievers make good pairings because they balance each other out and bring out the best in one another. I've seen this in couples, but I've also seen this dynamic between me and my daughter. I know this is going to be hard to believe, but I'm the golden retriever in this scenario. Shocking, I know. I have a daughter who is more of a black cat, and we get along really well now, but communication has become paramount because our natures and our worldviews are vastly different. For example, when my daughter was signing up for fall classes for her senior year, I said something like, "This is so exciting. You have all these free periods. You can take classes that are interesting, anything you want to. Oh, how fun. You're so lucky to have this experience." To which she replied something like, "High school is so dumb. I can't wait to be done with it. I hate it, and those classes are never what you think they're going to be." I said, "Yeah, but it might be fun." And she retorted, "It won't be, but it might." I know it won't, but you might as well enjoy it. Why pretend? You get the idea. My daughter and I see the world very differently. Maybe you're born with your disposition, maybe it's life experience, I don't know. But the optimist-pessimist outlook, or golden retriever black cat dynamic, is something most of us can relate to. Whether you have a cat or a dog personality or if somewhere in between, I think we could all use a little shot in the arm when it comes to optimism. I just read an article that said Gallup polls have found that optimism among Americans is at an all-time low. There's a lot of golden retrievers and black cats in that mix, and they're all struggling. That's why I've called on the perfect friend to help. David Butler is a religious educator, a popular podcast host, an international tour guide, a passionate creative, a husband, a father, and a bringer of much-needed optimism to the world. But he also knows what it takes to get into a positive headspace. I've brought him into the studio today to help all of us, black cats and golden retrievers alike, figure out how to reclaim a little more optimism in our lives. He's going to talk about what optimism really is, how to find it, and how to keep it. Here's my conversation with David Butler. So when you think of real optimism, what is your definition of it?
The human mind and heart is not equipped to handle the kind of information that we are now experiencing. And I think social science backs me up on that.
24/7, nonstop, right?
And I think we're in a social experiment right now that people will study, 200 years from now and be like, wow, they got hit by a brick wall when all of this information came to them. And so as a practicing Christian, I don't think Jesus would say to someone like me, ignore the news and ignore the pain. But I also know I'm not equipped for all of that bad news. So I actually have to find somewhere in between it. And I think optimism is not ignoring what is hard and ignoring that there is hurting. I actually think you don't have optimism unless you first recognize the need for it. So without that, if you're just ignoring what's hard and you're ignoring what's sad and you're ignoring what hurts, then you're not actually practicing optimism. Optimism is acknowledging the hurt, letting grief have its place, letting hard have it sway on your soul, and then saying, I don't think this has to be the end of the story. I think something can be done about it. I think I might be able to play a small part in it, perhaps, but there is something positive that I believe can come from this experience we're in right now, that it doesn't have to remain in this place. So it almost is this acknowledgement and agency. I can act in this.
Yeah.
And then looking forward to say, and I don't believe it always has to stay the same.
Things have to change,
yeah,
right?
That's my current running definition of what optimism actually is.
What else do you think we get wrong about optimism?
I actually think optimism has to be founded in something. If I say, like, everything's going to be all right, how do you know that? What's that founded in?
Right.
My parents were on a plane to Korea, and it got hit by lightning twice.
Oh, my gosh.
And apparently planes are fine if they get hit by lightning.
Good to know.
A lot of the time. I don't know if that's 100% kind of statistic, but
we'll fact check that after the podcast. Don't even worry.
It just boom, and everything shook and lights flickered and screamed, happened again. And then this was a Korean airline. And so the flight attendant, she got on the intercom and first spoke in Korean for 90 seconds.
Okay.
And then, like they do on international flights, moves to English. And all she said in the microphone in English was, "Ladies and gentlemen, everything will be okay." And my parents were like, "Yeah, right. You just told the Koreans where the parachutes were." Yeah.
We don't know what you said.
Or the hard liquor or some sort of solution to this. Are you
said
Thor, god of thunder? How do you know that everything is going to be all right, And that could just be the company line.
Just reassure everyone. Just say it's going to be
Or she could be an expert. And if she was... and had all this experience, now her optimism is founded in something.
Right.
It's not just a fairy tale whim. That's not what optimism is, in my mind.
Having it founded in something, absolutely. How do you protect your optimism?
I think part of optimism is reframing stories. And often I can tell a story to myself without realizing I'm telling it to myself.
Oh, that's
so
true.
I interpret it as my gut. My gut says, and it's really like, hold on.
Things are
if
not
I
going
analyzed
well.
that, you're actually telling yourself a story, right? I get one negative comment on a YouTube video, and the whole world hates me, and that's actually not true.
Yeah.
But I can easily tell myself that story, or I see one piece of bad news and I make up a story in my head. And so I think
And it's so automatic. Sometimes you're not even aware that you made it up. You just immediately accept it.
Yeah.
Like every opinion, every feeling, every idea.
And I think
doesn't deserve equal value.
Oh, amen. We have this instinct. My brain is designed to keep me safe.
Yep.
And so if it perceives a threat, and news is written in a way that invokes fear.
And is intended to exploit that.
Yeah, right. And my brain will make up a story to make sure I stay safe.
That's so interesting that you say that. In my worst moments of grief, I would have to physically stop myself, whatever I was doing, and say, oh, my brain is trying to protect me.
Yeah.
By this intrusive thought, this horrible thought replaying over and over again, which is a big part of grief. And I would hate it, and I just would have to stop and acknowledge it in order to move on. I had never had to do that in my life before.
The road to optimism. It begins with the acknowledging of, hold on, something wrong is happening or has happened. Something hurtful is occurring.
Yes, acknowledging it.
Yes. Okay, number one, what's the reality of it versus what's my brain running rampant on?
Yeah.
Then next step is, okay, so is there anything I can do about it? Should I do something about it? Do I want to do something about it? But then also to believe, and I think founded in past experience, that hey, things won't always stay like this. They don't always stay bad. There's been other times I felt something similar. I wasn't there forever.
Yeah.
I was in a hostel in Malta, sharing a bunk bed with a man from Turkey, and I was sick.
No.
And I was like, this is...
No.
I was like, I'm so miserable.
Of course you were.
And so I am texting Jenny from my bed, and I was like I'm so sick and so miserable.
Yeah.
This is the worst. I'm stuck in this hostel.
Yeah.
And all she texted back was, David, you are an adult with a credit card.
Yeah.
Fix it. Go somewhere.
Solve your problems.
I really could.
I know. Isn't that funny?
Yeah. When something negative happens, you feel like a victim.
You feel helpless.
Yeah. But there are things you actually can do. and I think that's empowering. Yeah. Yes. It's like, oh, I can do something in this particular state or with this particular situation.
Yes.
And it is beneficial.
I remember when I realized that somebody would say something or do something for me and my family that I hadn't thought of, that I desperately needed, that made me so happy or alleviated the suffering of my children or my spouse, and how excited I was that somebody could think of something and do something that would help change the way that I saw life. Talk about being stuck in your own story or your own head. I thought, I've got to open my mind to the things that are possible. And instead of staying in that victim mentality of yeah, you're right, everything's horrible, trying to think of creative ways of being able to alleviate suffering in others or help others has made me a much more positive person.
Oh, man, you're making the world a better place. I am making a difference. And then you realize, oh, wait.
You have power to create that.
Yeah, we all do. We all do.
This. We actually, instead of saying, well, there's nothing to be done, or what a horrible situation, period, end of sentence, to say, well, I can do this one thing. I can do this weird thing.
Right.
And I don't know, does this help? Seeing other people do that, it has really changed my mind about that. Here's this little thing, and then a little light shines through because of the actions and the choices of other people. There's something very powerful in that.
Yeah.
We do have more, I think, effect on each other than... Talk about stories we tell ourselves.
Oh, yeah. And that's what we're optimistic for. We're optimistic for...
something better.
Yeah, just something better. I actually think part of optimism is a community, too.
Oh, tell me more about that.
I think fear is contagious, and a lot of negative emotions can be contagious, but so is optimism. So you start surrounding yourself with people who are good at acknowledging hurt and then also believing that it's not going to stay that way, that something beautiful can come from it, right? Without erasing that it happened. And it's just good to be around people like that. And you probably more than me have experienced this in ways that are more significant with Chris's passing. But one example I can think of is we lost our niece this past year. She passed away in complications with childbirth.
Oh, so sorry.
And thanks. And my sister obviously is going through it, and it's affected everybody, but not like her, right? To lose a child is a really unique experience. It's just not typical, right? And part of the grief is, wait, it's not how it's supposed to be. Shouldn't be like this, right? But she's had conversations with others who are 5 years down the road from that same experience, and their hope and optimism that, hey, it will not always be this dark. I promise you. I've been there before.
You trust them. There's something really powerful in that. When I was in a dark, there will never be happiness, and no one can convince me otherwise. And I had a good community of people who were a little bit further down the road, had experienced it, and said, I know how you feel. I do. And I thought that too, and you will. And there's a different kind of heartache. And they didn't sugarcoat it.
Yeah.
But I remember I had the thought, you didn't see this coming. You never thought you would ever feel this way before, ever, in your wildest dreams. So the opposite could be true too.
So great.
You don't know.
Right. Yeah.
Because you didn't think you'd be in this position, so you might be happy again.
Yeah.
And you might laugh more than you cry again someday.
Yeah, this one shocked you.
This one shocked you, so the opposite can shock you. And that idea let hope creep in and let that optimism creep in of, I don't know. And your brain doesn't want you to allow to say, no, but I know.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But you sort of have to suspend that disbelief. I don't think people realize how much optimism is a choice, but not in the way that you think.
That's well said. And I think if you're in a spot where hope starts to creep in, what's interesting is then that motivates me to okay, then maybe I'll say yes to lunch with a friend, and maybe I'll go outside, and then it just compounds itself, right? It just,
be in a position where it might happen.
Yeah.
And I might allow it to happen.
Yeah.
And then I'm looking for it.
Right, yeah.
What does optimism look like to you when prayers are not answered? Because I feel like that's the big one that people come to.
Yeah.
There was a time when people would be like, and then we prayed and he was healed. And I'd be like, good for you.
Yeah,
What about when the answer is no?
Yeah, that's hard. That's hard to sit in church and, for some, be holding the pieces of their broken heart And then someone stands up and says, I lost my car keys. And then I prayed and I found them. I am such a great fan of God loves the little things, you know? And I'm like,
God's in the details.
Yeah, and I feel sad that somebody has a difficult time celebrating that kind of win. And what's happening is they're just comparing that situation to theirs. And the story they might be telling themselves is, God clearly cares more about you than me because he helped you with that stupid car key and not me with this
heavy weight.
And that's not true. That is the story you're telling, but it's not true. I can be disappointed and brokenhearted, and God can be good at the same time. The tragedy I experienced is not a reflection of how he feels about me. And there's a really famous story in the Bible of Jesus calming the waves and the storms of a sea. And the way that it describes that storm is they thought they were going to die. And these are professional fishermen, so this is not just drama. They really thought they were going to die. And the scriptures say, but he was asleep, which are 4 words no one stitched into a pillow. You're like, these are the least comforting words in the history of
Because there's so much behind that, isn't there?
Yeah, and you see it because the disciple fishermen wake him up, and what they say to him is, you don't care.
Yeah.
That's what they said. And now that's not true. In 2 years from that day, he is going to die on a cross to show how much he actually does care. That's the real story of his heart. But in that moment, the story they told themselves is, you being asleep during this says you don't care. We're going to die. They go to worst case scenario. And it's interesting because Jesus says back to him, what are you so afraid of? Which I will admit I read for a long time in a very patronizing. What are you afraid of doesn't sound like a great, can you imagine the ship is practically broken in half and he's like, what are you afraid of?
Yeah.
And Luke's like, well, I don't know. Mark is hanging off the bow or the starboard. I don't know my boat, sir.
Yeah, of death.
Yes, what do you think
suffering.
What do you think we're afraid of? And I really thought that for a long time until one night, in the middle of the night, one of my kids woke me up. That's terrifying. In the middle of the night, woke me up and, Dad, I'm scared. And I said, what are you scared of? And I was like, oh my gosh.
I just said it.
That's when I realized Jesus wasn't ignoring their hurt and pain. He was acknowledging it.
He was coming to meet them where they
he
were.
Was saying,
let me be in it right here.
Tell me what you are actually afraid of right now. And then we can handle it. And in my kid's case, it was monsters, And I'm like, oh, perfect. Because your mom actually knows what to do with monsters, so go wake her up. Okay, now we can talk about this.
Yeah.
That can be scary. The dark is scary because you can't see behind things. So let me explain and let's talk about it. Let's work through it. And I actually think that is knowing the character of Jesus that I know from all other passages of Scripture helps me make that assumption about what the intent of that question was.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know for sure, but I'm just like, oh, you're acknowledging the hurt and you're asking them, why are you going to worst case scenario? Were they scared? Are storms uncomfortable and wild and scary? Yes, those are true. There are some things that are true, but then there's also a part of the story that they're making up. And I think when they say to Jesus, you don't care, that is an assumption, a false one, about his heart. And part of optimism, or I think the religious word, the faith word for that is hope. Hope, I think, is more powerful when it is rooted in the person you have hope in and not the results or what's going to happen day to day. These hard things are happening to me. God is good at the same time. I have hope in who he is. And I have hope in what he can do with this mess that's here. And that's not wishful thinking. I do believe in a God that leaves us in a place where hope can live.
I think we have some assumptions on what hope or optimism look like. It should feel happy.
Yeah.
It should feel
but
strong.
But Paul in the New Testament calls it an anchor to the soul. And there's something about that that's intriguing to me where he says, oh, it's not like dandelions, it's settled. This hurts. I feel like I'm being beaten from every side, but I'm going to be okay. I'm settled. And as a person of faith, my hope is in God, is in Jesus of Nazareth, and who I believe he is and what he promises that he will do. I trust him. I trust him because of the scene we talked about on the cross, where it's like, okay, you didn't give up and you showed how willing you were to make things right and to rescue. I trust a person like that.
Yeah. It rooted in something, and I like that. Are there certain habits that you have or that you encourage in others too as well to keep hope alive, to keep optimism an active part of your life?
If you are spending so much time moping in the way you wish things were, you'll miss all the good in the way things are. And let me also say, all of my decisions have not been taken away from me.
Right.
So that's like something I try to tell myself. Let's put our mind on the future. Let's put my heart onto
now?
Onto the present and future, Okay, that happened. It happened.
Yep.
How many hours do we spend? And I wish I wouldn't have done that, or I wish that wouldn't have happened.
Yes.
Was there something else I could have done to prevent it?
And also, I think the focus on other people. If they were only like this or did this, then I could be happy, be optimistic, have hope.
Yeah.
Things that we don't have control over.
Right. So I think focusing on that future is another like habit or skill set that I try to. And you know what? And I think there is something about, hey, look for what's good. You can
retrain your brain.
Right. You can do that. People talk about these things like, oh, write down the things that you're grateful for. It's like, oh, you're just training your brain.
I did that while rolling my eyes. At time, I'm like, yeah, sure. I'll drink a lot of water, get sunshine on my face, talk to friends. Oh, write a gratitude journal. Great. Okay, that'll help. I did it and ate my words.
Yeah, it actually did.
Because then, during the day, I would look for things and acknowledge them. So there is something to that.
And something empowering to it.
You work with youth too, and as a father as well. What do you tell kids who are anxious about the future? Because sometimes it is hard to serve up optimism.
Yeah. I think first I say, what are you anxious about?
Yeah.
Like, let's get you out of your head for a second and figure out what is it that you're so nervous about.
Yeah, let's say it out loud.
Yeah, right. And then to say, okay, what's our next step? And I think part of serving up optimism is them seeing, I'm not panicked by this.
Yes.
I'm not overwhelmed by this. They don't need me to give them a solution necessarily as much as I think they want stability and like someone positive and something like, okay, the world's not spinning. My mom is anchored. Everything else feels like it's falling apart. I have something to hold on to. And so I feel like, I don't know if I can necessarily give optimism as much as I can teach the skill set to it.
Yeah.
But I can provide the environment where someone can feel optimism and feel hope.
That's huge.
Yeah. And I mean, coming back to that story that we said about Jesus in the boat, Jesus asleep doesn't mean he doesn't care. It means he's not intimidated. He's like, I'm actually sleeping through it. I'm pretty calm about this. Like, it's going to be okay. And it's like, oh, well, if you think it's going to be okay, then maybe it actually is going to be
people who you trust.
Yeah, that it's going to be okay. And so I feel like that's one of the things I can do best.
I'm wondering, is there like a particular scripture or maybe a motto or something that you think of that helps you to try to stay positive? I'll share you mine.
Yeah, okay.
When I was like, well, you might be wrong too, Lisa. I have a good sense of humor with myself. But remembering that no feeling is final helps me not to be anxious or worried about lots of different things and having a place for it. What about you?
I had a friend who's wasted a whole lot of money in really stupid decisions.
Okay.
And somebody else was saying, to this friend, like, do you know what you could have done with that money instead of what you did do with that money? Do you know right now you could have your house paid off? Do you know that you could? And she sat in the chair and she just goes, whoops. And I cannot tell you how often I
That takes a lot of confidence.
Yeah,
and also there's okay.
Well, do you see how you
That's
can get
amazing.
so panicked in the past?
Oh,
and
sure.
I just love that whoops is a line that just
That's a good way to give yourself grace.
Yes, exactly. That's what I mean. And I intend to dismiss the mistakes I've done that hurt other people. I don't say whoops about that. But when I'm dealing with myself, I'm just well, whoops. And then my grandma used to say this line. She always used to say what Scarlett says in Gone with the Wind, which is, well, tomorrow is another day,
I do love that.
And I can hear my grandma saying it almost like an angel's voice sometimes in my head, just okay, well, tomorrow's another day. I'm thankful for a creator God who consistently, at least once a day, 365 times a year, he reminds us that the sun comes up after darkness. In case you needed that reminder again and again and again, which apparently we do, he designed the spinning of this earth to ensure that we had a physical symbol and reminder of the sun comes up. After darkness, there's always light, consistently. So I begin to trust it, and I begin to believe that can be true for everything.
That's beautiful. I love that.
One of the teachings I love and hate most from Jesus is he says, pray this day your daily bread. And I say, Jesus, I'd actually like decade bread.
Yeah.
Because I would like
more.
My pantry to be secure for a decade. And he just says, no, there's something really sweet and exalting to the soul for a person to rely on daily grace. It does something that security can't quite do for you. I'm not anti-security. I'm not anti-planning. I love all those things.
Right.
I still want decade bread. But Jesus has this way of just saying, hey, tomorrow's going to be okay. Look at the sparrows. Look how they just enjoying right now. They're just flying, and look at the lilies of the field. They're just growing, God
Taking
cares
no
more.
worry.
Yeah, they don't have no worry. God cares about you more than them. You'll be okay.
Yeah.
You're going to be okay.
Right.
Someone's going to watch out for you and take care of you. And I think it leaves you free to live life creatively and be brave because everything's going to be okay. It's a promise I hold on to with a tight grip. Yeah. Everything's going to be okay.
One of my favorite quotes is from Victor Hugo. He said, "Have courage for the great sorrows of life and patience for the small ones. And when you have laboriously accomplished your daily task, go to sleep in peace. God is awake." That's the bedrock of my optimism. We aren't alone in our boats during the storm. The waves may drench us and scare us half to death, but he's not going to let us sink. And even when the winds are howling, there's always something we can do, even if it's just recognizing that two things can be true at the same time, or giving space to the possibility that good things are just as likely to happen as worst-case scenarios. Our stories aren't over, and the sun will rise again tomorrow to remind us of that fact. And that's true for black cats and golden retrievers alike.
The Lisa Show is a production of BYU Radio, hosted by Lisa Valentine Clark. This episode was produced by Erica Price with help from Becca Hurley-Long, Blake Morse, and Kenny Mears, with post-production by Gracie Davis. A special thanks to today's guest, David Butler. Links to his podcast and Instagram will be in the show notes. Don't miss out on two other amazing podcasts from the Lisa Show family, The Council of Moms and Proofread. A new book review cast help you read more of what you love. You can find The Council of Moms and Proofread on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. As always, thanks for your messages. We read them all, and thanks for listening.
Are you looking to build better connections or bridge divides but struggle with the how? There's another podcast I think you'll love. It's called Uncomfy, Sticking with Moments That Challenge Us. It's an audio and video podcast brought to you by the BYU Radio family. Now, on Uncomfy, you'll hear stories of real people and moments that really challenge their perspective. And instead of getting angry or shutting down, they stuck with their discomfort. Whether it's getting some tough feedback from a close friend or choosing to hear out a politically opposed colleague, they chose chose to stay open and curious, and they're glad they did. It's very empowering. New episodes of Uncomfy drop every Wednesday. You can listen or watch on the BYU radio app or wherever you get your podcasts.